Rafale is a hard choice. Everybody knows it's very expensive. A lot of money is going there. We are choiceless in this environment, if I may say so. If our domestic program had delivered as promised, I don't think so. Any government would have approved a deal of this size. If Mark II was flying today, which on paper at least delivers nearly similar performance as Rafale F2, F3, nobody would have gone ahead and spent $40 billion on an imported platform. MMRCA deal fell through in 2003 because of one, besides the money of course, one major condition. DASU refused to stand guarantee for Rafales produced by HAL. China is fielding 6th generation fighter aircraft. We are at the vendor selection stage of 5th generation aircraft. I have a bias, having been in Air Force for close to 22 years. I am yet to meet a fighter pilot who was happy with HAL. Not even one. We need 60 to 65 to take care of a collusive Pakistan-China threat, and we are below 30. And not just that, another 5 to 10 years, we're going to lose another 10 squadrons unless we fill up the bucket quickly. Mark I not delivered fully, Mark I is nowhere in sight, Mark II is yet to take first flight, and MK, which is going to be our 5th generation answer to the Chinese threat, we are at the vendor selection stage. So things are dire, man. They're very bad if you look at both capacity as well as capability, and the choices are too few and far in between.
Given China's J-20 fleet expansion, how urgent are these AMCAs for India's defense?
I mean, they were urgent yesterday. They become critical today, and if there is delay, that delay could be catastrophic because China is fielding 6th generation fighter aircraft. We are at the vendor selection stage of 5th generation aircraft. So the capability and the capacity gap is big. It's widening every day. Raksha Mantri has tweeted in Hindi, and he's mentioned this, that not just the 5th generation, we need to make the 6th generation. And in series of tweets, he's also mentioned both the Safran and the Rolls-Royce that we are looking at it. So I believe the government has kept both the options open. That is option 1, throw more time and treasure and hope like hell it works. Or option 2, shake hands with somebody, what is to be done.
You obviously are in favor of option 2.
Ma'am, I'm in favor of creating a capability today. If money solves it, then we need to do it, ma'am. If you think defense is expensive, try defeat.
India faces twin air power challenges. Pakistan to the west, China to the north. Now we are inducting Rafales, betting on Tejas, building AMCA, expanding missile shields. But here's the real question. Are we moving fast enough for a two-front air war? Tonight, on the Line of Defense, we ask the hard questions about readiness, delays, deterrence, and, of course, dominance. Group Captain Ajay Ahlawat, welcome to the show. So you've flown fighters, commanded squadrons. You worked at the Western Air Command. When you look at the Indian Air Force today, what excites you the most?
Ma'am, first of all, thank you for inviting me at this very beautiful studio to speak on a subject that I love speaking about, that is Indian air power.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am. So jumping right in, what excites me about the Air Force in particular and Indian air power in general is that we continue to live up to the rich legacy that was set for us or given to us or handed over to us by people like Arjan Singh, Meher Baba, Harjinder Singh, NJ Sekho, Jumbo Majumdar. They are role models. They told us what sacrifice means. They told us what duty means. Above else, they told us what professionalism means. I'm so glad that the Air Force stands tall today because we stand on the shoulders of these giants.
We saw Operation Sindoor. We saw how we demolished the enemy in that operation. When you look back, now when you sort of look ahead, what are the challenges that you see, or what worries you about the Indian Air Force?
Ma'am, Sindoor is a separate question set that I would request we take separately.
Absolutely, we will.
But what worries me today, and what worries more like me, is unless we do something very quickly, I mean, in next couple of years, we will be left with a hollowed out, toothless Air Force. We are woefully short of combat capability in terms of fighter squadrons. And unless we do something about it quickly, we will be found wanting. That is my worry.
At last count, we knew that there were about 29 or 30 squadrons, and the exact numbers really is 45. What has been sanctioned, what should have been there after the retirement of MiG. You're saying that obviously I think everyone has spoken about it. Even the Air Force, leadership is worried about the squadrons, and we are moving at quick speed to solve that situation. Do you believe that our speed is not quick enough?
Maybe let me throw a little bit of light on how we got to these numbers. After the 1962 war, in which we did not do very well, the government of the day constituted a committee, which the committee was tasked with finding out how many squadrons would Air Force need. Remember in 65, China was a different kind of country. Pakistan was a different kind of country. And they put Mr. J.R.D. Tata, the doyen of Indian aviation, as the head of this committee, expecting him to not be swayed by the institutional biases and the biases projected by the forces. He came out with a very ambitious number of 65, which was toned down to 42 and a half. And this 42.5 is something which is stuck with the Air Force. It is only once in our history from 69 to about 71 that we've touched this number. We've been below this, and we are lesser than 30 as on date. If we were to do a repeat threat assessment, which was actually done by a MOD-led committee, of which the Defense Secretary himself was the chair, it's called Glide Map to Capability Enhancement of IAF. Large portion of this report is classified, but some portions have been discussed, which again puts the number somewhere between 60 to 65 fighter squadron. So look at it, ma'am. We need 60 to 65 to take care of a collusive Pakistan-China threat, and we are below 30. And not just that, another 5 to 10 years, we're going to lose another 10 squadrons unless we fill up the bucket quickly. So this is something that worries me, ma'am.
The Rafales that we are getting, is that not a way to fill up that bucket quickly?
Okay, ma'am. Ever since this Rafale news came, a lot has been spoken about it, close to 40 billion. And the number would touch more or less 45 billion if we add spares, weapon package, training, and all other things. So there are two arguments which emerge. One says this is a magic bullet. Unless we have it, we are doomed. The other argument says that this is a poison pill. If we spend so much on an imported platform, there won't be much left for our domestic platform. And these are two extreme views, and everything else is in between. So let me dwell a little bit on fill rate. Fill rate is the rate at which we add squadrons every year. Depletion rate is the rate at which the squadrons get depleted because of obsolescence. So in 10 years, the 6 squadron of Jaguar, 3 squadrons of MiG-29 and 3 squadrons of Mirage-2000 will go because they are almost at the fag end of their life. You take 11 away. So in 10 years, if we just add 11 squadrons, we'll be at the same number, which is below 30. To reach the number of 42 and a half, we need to add 2.5 squadron every year for next 10 years. Where are the options, ma'am? LCA Mark 1 got stalled at 38. 40 were supposed to be delivered. LCA Mark 1A, we should have had 2 squadron by now. We don't even have 1 aircraft. Mark 2 is yet to fly. MK is still being discussed. We are at the stage of choosing which one or which vendor will make it. So Rafale is a hard choice. Everybody knows it's very expensive. A lot of money is going there. But we are choiceless in this environment, if I may say so.
So our backs are against the wall, and we really have to get something. So, okay, fine. Rafale will do for now.
So, ma'am, if you were to reframe the question, like if Rafale is the answer, what is the question? Let me take it like this. If Rafale is the answer that I'm throwing at you, what is the question? The question is, how do we prevent a hollowing out of the air power, the Indian air power? How do we retain the capability to deter our enemies and deliver punishment if the deterrence fails? We keep our sword sharp, not because we want to wield it, because that forces the enemy to keep his sword in the sheath. So how do we, remain a viable air power which is capable of deterrence as well as punishment if we don't have the capability? And there are two elements here: capability as well as capacity. Capability is given by the high-end platforms, and capacity is given by numbers. We need both, and we are wanting both, ma'am.
So you're saying that Rafale is the hard choice, but the right choice given the situation?
I'm not going as far as to say the right choice, but I will say the only choice, very hard choice, and very, very expensive choice. And we are paying this high price for our own follies. If our domestic program had delivered as promised, I don't think so. Any government would have approved a deal of this size, ma'am. If Mark 2 was flying today, which on paper at least delivers nearly similar performance as Rafale F2, F3, nobody would have gone ahead and spent $40 billion on an imported platform.
How would you? So Mark One, you said, HAL is already working on it. It's delayed. What would you say? How do we get rid of these delays that are really throttling us as far as air power is concerned?
Ma'am, if you're looking for blame, there is enough to throw around.
Yeah, everybody.
But if you're looking for a solution, and if you permit me a little bit of latitude, let me jump into a little bit of history before I go there. So 84, we thought of making a light combat aircraft of our own. This was not the first fighter. HF-24 Marut was our first jet fighter. India was the first country in Asia, well before China, to create a jet fighter of our own, HF-24 Marut. And engine was the unbecoming. It was required to be supersonic, but the engines that we had for it could never take it to supersonic speed. The program was shelved, Jaguars were imported, no problem. 84, we said, let's try again. So we came up with LCA program along with Kaveri, the engine that will power the LCA. 2000, the first flight took place. From 2000, it was a spiral development. Things kept getting delayed, keeps happening. Pokhran tests caused some sanctions by the Americans. Some critical technologies got delayed. Please do remember, the heart of the aircraft is the engine, and LCA flies on an American engine. All those delays took place. Finally, HL was at a stage that said, okay, we are ready to sign contracts. 2 was signed because, again, spiral development. You get a good enough, then you get better, then you get better, you get better. A fighting force would like the best toy to fight, but we'll also cater to what can be given. So 20 aircraft were ordered in IOC, initial operation configuration. The aircraft is fly, fight, minus some capability. And 20 more in FOC, final operational configuration of Mark 1. They were all to be delivered by 2016. That is the contract. We are sitting in 2026. 2 have not been delivered. Or let me qualify the statement. Serial number 3940 are trainers. They were delivered, but were not delivered in the configuration or with the capability that was promised. So Air Forces refused to take them on. They're lying in the hangar. Some of them sometimes are used to work on the Mark 1A, which is the next variant. For the Mark 1A in the spiral development process, Air Forces already committed about 180, and more can be ordered if they were to come on time. And if you do remember, last year, Aero India, there was a statement by the air chief in the cockpit, "Maja nahi aaya," and everybody picked on it. कि air chief को मजा नहीं आया, air chief को गुस्सा क्यों आया? जो चीज, the thing that was promised, a year ago, a squadron full, is still not there. We are almost at the end of this financial year. So Mark 1 not delivered fully. Mark 1 is nowhere in sight. Mark 2 is yet to take first flight. And MK, which is going to be our 5th generation answer to this Chinese threat, we are at the vendor selection stage. So things are dire, ma'am. They're very bad if you look at both capacity as well as capability. And the choices are too few and far in between.
Okay, you spoke about AMCA. I'm going to speak about AMCA in a bit. But before that, I just want for the viewers, for them to understand what squadrons do, what squadrons are, and why do we need that many squadrons to fight this twin threat that we now face on our western and the northern borders?
So, ma'am, deterrence, in theory at least, is the three-legged table. It has capability, it has will, and it has communication. A nation willing to or prepared to deter others should have the capability as well as capacity to cause punishment. It should have the political will to take that risk because war causes damages on both sides, and we should be able to in a clear manner, convey our intent to the other side. That is the third leg, communication. Now. Uh, China with closer to 200 fighter squadron and Pakistan closer to same 25 to 30 fighter squadron. If we take them one by one, we have a little bit of numbers edge on Pakistan. We are woefully inadequate when compared to China. And if we were to take care of a collusive threat, we would need certain numbers. And I keep referring to both capacity as well as capability. Uh, it should all ideally flow from national security strategy, which dictates the national military strategy. You look at what our threat is, how do I intend to deal with it? Will I fight alone? Will I fight in an alliance? Will I cede some concessions to avoid a fight? Delay the fight when I'm ready. What is my economic heft? What is the status of my economy? What are my alternate priorities? So all those things are factored in before from this month on comes out the national military strategy, and then we come to domain specific strategies, the air domain, the land domain, and the sea domain. So after having done all that, and when the government looks at the Air Force and said, okay, give me a number with which you can take care of either or both, and that number is fairly high, ma'am, and we are nowhere close. So that is where we need these squadrons.
Right. And as far as you just rattled out the number of squadrons that China has, 200. The number of squadrons that Pakistan has, about 25 or 26, which is almost what we have right now, and that's a pretty scary thought. What we saw in Operation Sindoor, we seemed to be fairly up there as far as the air power is concerned. But you're saying that's not the case.
No. I'm not saying that's not the case. If tomorrow, as such, the government has declared that Sindoor is just pause, it's not over. If tonight Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh gets the orders, the CATOs, which is the Command Air Tasking Orders, will flow to the squadron, and I'm quite certain before the first light, same amount of effort would be airborne to deliver precision air power in pursuit of national objectives. But do we have enough? That is the part
I get you. I'm not saying that we can't do it. We've done it. We've shown it in Operation Sindoor.
Everybody realizes what we need. Right. The debate or disagreement seems to be on how to do it. Go the domestic route, fill the numbers using the indigenous platform and indigenous capability as well as capacity.
पर उसमें तो एयर चीफ को मजा नहीं आ रहा है.
नहीं ma'am, to be,
but just joking. But if it's not up to a certain standard,
ma'am, standard we'll accept 80%. We'll accept 20% deficiency also. But at least the numbers must come. Where are the numbers? That is the problem, ma'am.
You said you don't want to get into a blame game, but objectively speaking, where exactly is the is it at the level of HAL? Is it at because the government has sanctioned it, right? The Air Force has placed the order. The order is not coming through.
So, ma'am, the design is frozen. The HAL is essentially doing the role of FAL, final assembly line. Somebody makes the wing, somebody makes the tail. From somewhere you source the radar, somewhere you source the electronic warfare system, and everything comes together on the shop floor in HAL. And a completed aircraft is supposed to be delivered by HAL. In that pursuit, the things which are not actually working are not in open domain, but what has been released to media is one, that all the radar modes are not working as supposed to, especially the integration with the weapons that they're supposed to, and the number of the weapons or the quantum and quantity and quality of weapons that the aircraft should be able to get airborne with in one go is still not delivered. HAL says, take it, we'll fix it as we go along. And then we refer to the example of LCA Mark 1. When the last two trainers were not up to mark, the HAL told Air Force, take it, we'll fix it in few months.
But it's still in the
The HAL said, buddy, take those few months. We'll wait. We waited 10 years. Air Force does not want to go the same route again. So when HAL says, give us few months, that's where the Air Force came out with an announcement, let us know when you are ready, and then we'll take a look at it. End of the day, it is government's call, ma'am. The MOD can obviously tell the Air Force, take it as they are, and it's a spiral development, and they'll probably come good little later.
In the same vein, therefore, the advanced medium combat, the AMCA initiative, the AMCA fighters, and HAL being asked not to be a part of it. That's what reportedly we are understanding. What is it that's signaling about India's, at least aircraft manufacturing ecosystem?
So what happened? Having looked at the delays in deliveries of the light combat aircraft Mark 1, 1A, and delays in Mark 2 rollout, Air Force was very keen that we should have somebody other than HAL bidding for the 5th generation fighter aircraft, which are MCA. It's called Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft. Medium comes in because of the weight category, which was to counter the 5th generation threat being built by China. So that was Air Force's request to the ministry that can we have private industry? But the ministry said, any purchase of this nature, we can't just ignore the behemoth that we have fed and, nurtured for such a long time. 1940, it started at Hindustan Aircraft Limited, and in 60s became Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So much of money, time, resources gone into it. So there was a little bit of debate and discussion. And then they came out with a clause which was financial viability and order book. So basically what the clause said, there were 8 or 9 criterias. In this criteria, if your order book is more than your annual revenue, then you lose marks. And you were supposed to get 0 out of 100 if it was 1:3. In HL case, it is 1:8. So if HL makes $100 a year, they already have orders for $800. That means for next 8 years, even if they don't get any single order, they will continue. They're full. Their hands are full. So we looked at this clause. We in the ministry looked at this clause that your plates are already full. There is so much that you need to deliver. And if we add one more on top of it, there is a possibility that there'll be slippages. So this clause was inserted. MOD, owns the Air Force. MOD owns the HAL. It was not a surprise. So because of that clause, HAL got eliminated, and 3 bids from the private sector were accepted.
Tata, Larsen and Toubro, and of course Bharat Forge. Those are the 3 companies that will now, perhaps one of them will build AMCA, this advanced medium combat aircrafts. What's the timeline that you're looking at? These 5th generation aircrafts is exactly the missing element, which is why we are going in for Rafales right now. If we give the order now, what's the timeline for these aircrafts to come in?
Well, the timeline projected is that somewhere between 28 and 29, that's 2-3 years down the road, the first prototype of AMCA will fly. And 5 of them will be built. The 6th one will be for structural testing, basically to put it through accelerated fatigue test and all that. And once those prototyping testing is done and all, we happy with what we have, and then the mass production will start. So we're looking at more like the first fully operational squadron of AMCA in best case scenario will be somewhere around 2036 or so.
Right. And in the meanwhile, the Rafales are supposed to keep us company and sort of...
Ma'am, in the meantime, MRFA, which is multi-role fighter aircraft of medium class, was supposed to fill the gap. That MRFA should have been LCA MK2 and a little bit of Mark 1A.
But that hasn't come.
They are not there. So that is why this Rafale, a very, very expensive deal, I must say. By the way, the deal is not yet signed, ma'am, irrespective of what we say. There's a great amount of intent from the government, but I see 3 hurdles, and let's see how it plays out. The first hurdle is, out of these 3 bidders, who gets to choose the partner? The DASO, the people who will make the Rafale, or the Indian government? What if the Indian government suggests one of these and the DASO is not happy with them? The second is, there is a lot of aspiration for localization of content. We would want as much of the fighter to be built here to kind of mitigate the heavy
And
cost
they don't want to
burden.
give that away.
No, they're not said no, but it'll be 30%, 40%, 60%. How much? So that is, sticking bone out there. That's the second challenge I foresee. And third, the MMRCA deal fell through in 2003 because of one, besides the money, of course, one major condition. DASU refused to stand guarantee for Rafales produced by HAL. In that deal, out of 126, 18 or to 20 were to fly away and rest were to be made here in India. And DASU said, if you make them here, we will not stand guarantee. That remained the sticking point. So I still see these three challenges. And obviously the fourth one, which is with all deals of this size, there is something called CNC, the cost negotiation committee will like to drive a hard bargain. So it's not a done deal as yet.
It's not a done deal. There's lots of intent from both sides.
Massive intent, massive intent from the political leadership. But this is my prediction that there are a lot more hoops to jump through.
But given the fact that there are delays, and given the fact that you're saying that there are still hoops to jump as far as Rafales are concerned, AMCA is 2036. In the meanwhile, what happens?
What do you do? Would you choose a surer path that delivers capability as well as capacity at a higher cost? Or would you rather wait and pray that the domestic program delivers? That is the answer, ma'am.
I would go for the first one.
Yes.
And that's a no-brainer, right? Our men are out there, and this is about the security of the country. But as you pointed out, there are delays, and you want the perfect product to be able to protect the country. But coming back to my question on the fifth generation aircraft, AMCA, how, given China's J-20 fleet expansion, how urgent are these AMCAs for India's defense?
I mean, they were urgent yesterday. They become critical today. And if there is delay, that delay could be catastrophic because China is fielding sixth generation fighter aircraft. We are at the vendor selection stage of fifth generation aircraft. So the capability and the capacity gap is big. It's widening every day. We need AMCA to come online yesterday or at least as soon as possible. And I have recommended in my writings, whenever I get a chance to write on it, that the PMO should directly take over this program, call it the mission of national importance, put a 3-star Air Force officer in charge, reporting directly to the NSA, and take weekly feedback. If there are genuine delays in terms of metallurgy or avionics development or something that only science can solve, that will take his time. But if there is a delay because of a bureaucratic red tape, that must be cut in seconds, actually. So that would be my kind of little bit of recommendation.
Let's hope that the PMO is listening to this podcast when it airs and your recommendations, because it does, because in the meanwhile, while AMCA is in the process and while it's coming, that's 2036, the next 10 years, how do we sustain? Because the threat is not going away. Operation Sindoor showed us that the Pakistan and the China threat are real and present. In the next 10 years, and provided the hurdles go through and the Rafales come in, how important does Rafale give India that qualitative edge over Pakistan and China in the meanwhile?
It gives us an edge over Pakistan, certainly, but it does not give us an edge over China. What it allows us is to, cause or be in a state of dissuasive deterrence. Then we can tell the Chinese, should you venture into an adventure, we will cause you unacceptable attrition. And this is the stage of our discussion. We must, move out a little bit. So fighter aircraft are not the only tools of force application. Speaking from air power perspective, you need, capabilities in space, satellites that looking at enemy all the time, gathering intelligence, surveilling their military activity, collecting intelligence. Likewise, for navigation, capability in space. Likewise, our Navy venturing out and troubling the Chinese with their lines of communication of their trade, army delivering effect on ground. So there are a lot of things that the military, together along with other tools of national power, will come in. Uh, Even in Air Force, there are things that need address, which is air-to-air refuelers, AVACs, uh, more modern network platforms. There are other urgent needs that need to be taken care of. So there is a whole lot of what do I say, the want list from the armed forces, but we are aware India is a growing country, and there are a lot more other developmental needs to be fulfilled.
So, since we're talking about delays and readiness, I also want to talk about the Tejas MK1A. Uh, it's faced engine and supply chain delays. How damaging are these delays on the Tejas MK1?
So, ma'am, Tejas MK1 flies on GE 404 engine. It's called 404IN because certain India specific enhancements have been made. It's a engine made in US. So unless we get the engines in the numbers that we want, the program will always face delay. And aircrafts are typically designed around the engine. So I read on social media, some people say, why don't you get AL31, which we make in Nasik, or get some other engine and all that. It's not that simple. Radar is more or less plug and play. You can change the radar after a little bit of work, but engines not so much. We kind of married to the GE404 as far as LCA Mark 1A is concerned, and also GE414, which is slightly better version of the same kind for LCA Mark 2. So what can I say? That's our critical vulnerability, ma'am. If we don't get those engines, the program does not pick up the speed that we desire.
So, I'm assuming then that the Tejas program definitely doesn't become the backbone of the Indian Air Force, at least till till the engine situation is solved, because we don't make engines.
No, ma'am. Not like that. We 83 and 84, when we thought of LCA, is also the year we thought of making an engine. It was called Kaveri, and the hot section was supposed to be called Kabini. Both programs started very ambitious, ahead of our time, and a lot of people thought we will not be successful. Unfortunately, they turned out to be right. So Kaveri finally, is about 10% overweight and 10% under thrust, broadly speaking. So it did not reach where it was supposed to, but a lot of progress has been made. So there are two choices now. Either double down on Kaveri effort, spend more money, time and treasure and try and get it to what we want. Or, we realize that this is what we could achieve. Have a joint venture with one of the foreign vendors which are good at making engines. Two contenders are there, Rolls-Royce and Safran from France. Have some kind of JV with them and finish the task with them. And in the process, gain the sovereign control over this engine technology. That means we are not dependent on them supplying it. The JV should allow us to make them as many of them as possible at home. So that gives us engine sovereignty, and that would allow us to completely own the fighter program in the future.
But will these French companies share that technology? I mean, or does the JV solve that problem?
Well, both Rolls-Royce and Safran have indicated their willingness, because the amount of money that they would ask or will be offered is huge. So it will essentially fund the development of their next generation of engine, which is the 6th generation engine, looking at variable cycle and more efficient and able to deliver a much wider performance. They'll be much happy to.
Do you think opening this up to private participation, like we are doing with the AMCA program, do you think opening up the aircraft engine making to private participation, does that make it more of a situation where we will be able to do something like this?
Well, I'll answer this with a caveat. I have a bias. Having been in Air Force for closer to 22 years, I am yet to meet a fighter pilot who was happy with HAL. Not even one. So, fairly or unfairly, correctly or incorrectly, that is a bias that has gone into me. So, anytime I see that, somebody other than HAL will participate, I feel good about it. And this point was proven right when C295, the transport class of aircraft, the tech was given by Airbus, and the aircraft is being made by Tata. And the first aircraft is ready, almost ready, and others are in line. So Tata's could deliver a very complex C295 class of aircraft. I'm hopeful that the one of the three vendors or a combination of these three vendors would be able to produce a fighter that would meet our needs.
We're talking AMCA.
AMCA.
But what about engines?
Ma'am, engines, as I said, engines is a very complex story. We've reached wherever we could reach with Kaveri. Right now, the Kaveri dry version, that is without the afterburner, is considered fit for a unmanned aircraft. Ghatak is something which HAL is building. It will be unmanned, a jet class of aircraft. They say it is fit for Ghatak. I don't know whether it will fly or not. It's something we'll see. It will definitely not fly in a fighter as of now. It needs more work. Two choices. One is throw more money, time and treasure basically, and keep trying till we fix it. The other is, we've got this far. Let's speak to people who know how to do it. They will charge a bomb, pay that money, and get our Kaveri or whatever else we call it later on to a standard that meets our fighter engine requirement. Not just today, for future as well. Because future will eventually be, we might go to unmanned fighters or whatever kind of fighters we get to. So those two choices are there. One, this question is not there, but a lot of stuff is thrown on social media that Kaveri failed or did not deliver because the not enough funding was given. Ma'am, you can scan the reports. You can look at all the annual reports of GTRE. You can look at all the lectures by the Director Generals of GTRE. Nowhere have they said they did not have enough fund. Two things they normally complain about. One is the FTB, flight test bed. So basically when an engine is ready, you put it in an aircraft to fly. So you choose a transport class of aircraft with 4 engine nacelles, and one of this engine goes in and the other 3 good engines. So you get to test it. One is flight test bed, another is high altitude test facility. Very expensive, chamber that create density and all that. These two things were not there, and which should have cost a lot. Fair point. But if we had those two things here, we would have reached where we would have reached 5 years ago at an engine incapable of flying in a fighter. The outcome would not have changed. Testing more would have told us sooner that the Kaveri can only do so much. Testing more would not have given us a better engine. So those criticisms are unfair. I think the government has given what the GTRE asked or wanted. Testing has delayed the program. Testing has not, or the lack of testing or lack of testing facility has not caused the failure of the program. Inflection point, just yesterday, Raksha Mantri has tweeted in Hindi, and he's mentioned this, that not just the 5th generation, we need to make the 6th generation. Yeah. And in the series of tweets, he's also mentioned both the Safran and the Rolls-Royce, right, that we are looking at it. So I believe the government has kept both the options open. That is option 1, throw more time and treasure and hope like hell it works. Or option 2, shake hands with somebody who know what is to be done.
You obviously are in favor of option 2.
Ma'am, I'm in favor of creating a capability today. Yeah. If money solves it, then we need to do it, ma'am. If you think defense is expensive, try defeat. That's my point, ma'am.
True. Oh my God. It just seems so much to take in. Having said that, without going into classified details, I just want to go into Operation Sindoor for a bit, because this has been a very, it's been a talk about delays and problems and bottlenecks so far. Let's look at again because Operation Sindoor showed us India's, and showed not just us, but also our enemies, India's air defense readiness, not just on the air. Obviously, there were other aspects to it also, but largely India's air defense readiness. What would you say about that?
Ma'am, anytime we discuss Sindoor, there is a question as massive as an elephant that sits in the room, which is, did we lose aircraft? If at all we lost aircraft, how many did we lose and how did we lose? So that question sits out there, and that question takes away everything else from this discussion. So I'm glad you did not lead with that.
I was going to come to it next, but having said that.
Okay, so let me address it. In 1973, when the Israel was attacked by combined forces of Egypt, Syria and other Arab countries, Israeli Air Force lost 43 aircraft in first 48 hours. Almost 1 aircraft per hour. But we know how the war ended, the entire Sinai changed hands and a lot of things happened. Absolutely. So this discussion, narrowing the discussion about Sindoor to number of aircraft losses
No, absolutely not.
So I'm glad we and I will address it a little later. So what happened, ma'am? When the government sends armed forces to war, it gives you two things: the objective and the conditions for termination. Because you can't go into a never-ending war. So and this was not published as such. I'm basing it on the statements by the national leadership. Uh, the objective given was certain terror infra with clear instructions that civilian casualties will be avoided and military casualties will be avoided. This is the Prime Minister came on air right after we struck those targets to clearly say that we had told our military to be careful of collateral damage, and we had told our military to not engage Pak military targets, because the message that the national leadership was trying to convey was we are only targeting terror infra, and we would expect you to join hands with us in removing this problem from your hands as well. So that was the objectives: limit yourselves to terror infra, avoid hitting Pakistani military targets as well. And the second was conditions of termination. So once we've conveyed that we can strike the entire length and the breadth of Pakistan at will, I think that message was conveyed, that conditions of termination have also been met. So in that sense, it was a great success. Specifically from the Air Force, all the mission assigned to it was achieved. From the air defense, in which a large component of army also comes in, it worked very well. None of our major targets were hit. Couple of civilian houses were damaged, and very few minor facilities at military installations were damaged. The air defense worked very well, largely riding on the success of domestic weapons. And in terms of delivering punishment and delivering a message, the Air Force did very well. Look at the number of targets hit. There are holes in the center of the runway which are still being repaired 8 months later.
Exactly. And having said that, it wasn't just about that India could hit the length and breadth of Pakistan at will. It was also about our air defense. When they hit back, the manner in which we were able to strike back and not allow their ammunition to hit us on the ground here. Let's talk about that, because that is less talked about.
No, you are
Without
right,
going
ma'am.
into specific details, if you could just give us an anatomy of India's air defense as it exists along the western and the northern borders, if you...
Air battle is like shield and sword in simple terms. You shield yourself from the attacks that come from the other side, and you, with your sword, you deliver punishment, actually. That, except for the first night where the mission objectives were very restricted, and once those restrictions were removed, it was very simple. Take out everything that is pointed towards you, and at an opportune moment, at the time of your choosing and at the targets of your choosing, deliver effect, which was done very well. So in terms of air defense, starting from the Shilka 23 guns, which were considered outdated till certain years ago, to Akash, which is a home-built air defense missile, to Barak, which is an Israeli imported missile, to S-400, which took out an aircraft closer to 300 kilometers. So all these layers worked very well. So it is, in terms of air defense, it's like eyes, ears, and the punch. So the radars look for, what is going to cause you trouble. The electronic sensor hear out the electronic signature, and the punch is delivered through these air defense weapons or through the strike vector like BrahMos and Scalp. And when we, so if it was to extend a little bit more, rather than, we would not be debating whether the J-10 is better or Rafale is better. J-10s would not be flying. The birds will be destroyed in the nest, or at least the nest will be destroyed. The runways from which they were to operate would be non-operational if we had continued a little bit longer. So they would not have been this question of which aircraft is better or not. But as I mentioned, the conditions of termination was given. We wanted a non-escalatory scenario. We wanted to send a message that, we're calling off your nuclear bluff. You keep saying, since we have nuclear weapon, you can't attack us. We will attack you despite your nuclear weapon. But as a responsible nation, we'll call it off
when we want to,
when
and
we
when we
want
feel
to.
that our targets have been achieved.
Yes, and we could have gone more, and everybody else is acknowledging it now that had we gone a little bit more, we would have caused more damage. So in that sense, ma'am, our sword and shield worked very well.
Right. In terms of the shield, which is the air defense, is there a plan now? Are we moving towards a more distributed, uh, network centric air defense system?
Very good question, ma'am. You know how warfare is changing. In 70s or till early 80s, it was the skill of the operator, a pilot or a operator on the ground. From skill, we moved to the platform. The newer, say, Mirage 2000 is better than the MiG-21, and the Pechoras was better than SA-6, especially the missile. So we moved from pilot skill or operator skill to the platform, and from then we moved to the weapon. Say Jaguar, which is close to being obsolete, delivers a rampage missile, which is more modern, causes a lot of damage. So salience of skill to platform to weapon to now to network. It is a network force, even with inferior weapon, will cause more devastating effect. So if everybody is talking to everybody, the latency, that is the sharing of information, the sensor shooter loop, that responds faster. So what we need, and we've realized that this is one of the lessons learned during Operation Sindoor, is that we need to strengthen the network. So the information passes seamlessly to whosoever needed, and the response is almost immediate. So yes, a network force will always be better than a non-network force with the greater weapons, ma'am.
So are we moving towards that?
Completely. Network sits at the center of all our applications. We won't buy a coffee mug if we cannot network it to the rest of the stuff
And
that we have.
and this is obviously with the army and with the navy and with the air force all combined into one.
Pregnant pause for a reason, ma'am. Inter-service rivalry is legendary. You know, MacArthur once said the U.S. Army hates uh, U.S. Navy more than they hate the Japanese. So there is an element of inter-service rivalry. It is being fixed, hopefully. I leave it at that.
Okay, all right. I'm not going to go more into details on that, but also I want to talk about Project Kusha, which is India's indigenous 400-kilometer missile shield. How transformative can this be?
So what you do is, ma'am, is like defending your house at the doorstep, or defending your house at the gates of the society, or defending your house at the limits of the town. So the longer range weapon, the surer it is, the more accurate it is, the what do I say? Cheaper also, because unless it's cheaper, you can't build it at scale. It is the more defense you can create. Prime Minister of India gave us a vision, gave the armed forces a vision that he wants a Sudarshan Chakra line, like a balloon or a defensive shield around our country, that before it reaches anywhere close to our airspace, we destroys it. So Kusha is an outcome of that vision. We're looking at weapons which are precise, which can take out threats before they become threatening. But we're also looking at making them cheaply enough so that they can be built at scale, so that we can give them everywhere. So Kusha serves two or three of those needs. It's very accurate, it shoots further, and because it'll be domestic, we will be able to produce it at scale at a reasonable cost.
And is there a timeline to Project Kusha? The Sudarshan Chakra for
Timelines is our bugbear, ma'am. I mean, start noting down today. The promises will be next year, next year, next year. I don't know. I'm not very hopeful of the timing, but let's see with the next couple of years.
within the next couple of years, could even be a decade.
It could be, ma'am.
Okay. So, again, something that we should have had yesterday, but we're now working on it.
So that's why you see, if you follow the news, we wanted 5 squadron of S-400. All were not delivered because Russia got busy with their own war. We want more. So Kusha delivers S-400 like performances. Because Kusha is not ready and because Kusha could take a little bit of time, we are asking for more S-400s. But again, Kusha solves us for us the long-term needs of producing it at scale. You know, we have a long maritime frontier, which is longer than our land frontier. And if we wish to be a superpower, we will have to defend our maritime frontier as well as the island territories. So there is a lot of defending to be done out there as we gain preeminence amongst the Committee of Nations, ma'am.
Absolutely. And so it's like so Kusha will be the Iron Dome for India.
Kusha would fill a component of the Iron Dome, because before you shoot something down, you need to see it. Okay, so we will need sensors that can, see what is a threatening projectile, track a threatening projectile, identify it, and assign it. Not every projectile would be assigned to Kusha. The challenge is being seen in Ukraine also. A Geran 2 drone, which Russia sends towards Ukraine, cost between $20,000 to $50,000, depending on what electronics they use. True. A PAC-3, which is Patriot missile, any fire HAL of 2, costs $4 million each. So you're spending $8 million to take down $20,000 or maybe $40,000 worth of drone. So again, that equation comes in.
In fact, drones have changed the entire game in at least what we've seen in the Ukraine war. Do you see India getting ready enough for drones? Are we there yet?
India is, if not ready, then almost ready, because right from the platoon level, which is the lowest section of 10 people that fight, to the highest, which is our strategic forces command, drones are being factored in all calculations, ma'am. And drones could vary from something as small as 5 kgs to a unmanned bomber weighing about 20 tons. So the entire range is being thought of, being produced. Counter drone systems are being looked at. Directed energy weapons are being looked at. And we're also looking at the cost dynamics. Drones, as I mentioned, changes the cost dynamics. The cost of defending cannot be so high that it becomes almost prohibitively expensively to defend. So all those things are being looked at now.
So if an Indian civilian is watching this podcast right now, cause for worry in the short term, but in the long term, confidence about India's air superiority, is that what he should take away from this, or what?
Ma'am, jingoism, when wrapped around as patriotism, can be counterproductive. So if we keep saying we are the best, and we as in the military, and we expect the civilians to believe us because we are military, believe us, that doesn't work. I'm seeing a very welcome change that more and more non-defense handles are questioning the military on the choices of procurement of the weapon. It's a very good sign. Citizenry must be aware, and an aware citizenry can actually assess the challenges as well. Of course, we need more. Of course, all those things cannot be given. But I can assure the viewers that we are on the right path. We are thinking of what best we can do with what we have. So in that sense, a citizen watching this program should feel good that we have a very professional Air Force, and feel good that we have a large citizenry which is asking questions, the right kind of questions, and speaking truth to power, and forcing the military and the ministry to make cost-conscious decisions that work in the long run.
Is India prepared for a two-front war as on date?
Well, not just India, any country you see of our size and our military might will always be prepared. Whether we have all that we need, that is a different question. The military is always prepared, ma'am, and we will fight with what we have. And I'm not seeing it in a defeatist sense of the way. Absolutely. So each unit...
We've shown that it's not in the defeatist sense at all, because we did what we did in Operation Sindoor. We did.
So the military has war plans. It has all scenarios. Contingency 1 is from one side, contingency 2 is from the other side, contingency 3 is from both sides. And the war plans exist for to the smallest possible unit of what to do in contingency 1, 2, and 3. What we can deliver depends on what we have, but the plans are always there, and the military is always ready.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to us. And viewers, thank you so much for watching us. We'll come back to you again with the Line of Defense podcast. Stay tuned.